Today we will talk about leadership, power and negotiation. Leadership in organizations is multifaceted, involving ideas, behaviors, and positions. Leaders significantly impact the success of their organizations by effectively using power and influence to achieve objectives. For example, Tony Hsieh's leadership at Zabos through holacracy demonstrates a unique approach, though leadership styles and effectiveness depend on the circumstances. Leadership is a widely discussed topic, with thousands of books and resources aimed at improving leadership skills. Leadership is defined as the use of power and influence to guide followers toward achieving goals. Leaders shape followers' perceptions, work organization, commitment to goals, relationships, and cooperation within the organization. This chapter explores how leaders acquire and utilize power and influence, including negotiation strategies. The next chapter will delve into how leaders apply these tools to help followers achieve their goals. Well, the question we need to answer is, why are some leaders more powerful than others? The term power can evoke both positive and negative connotations, depending on its use. Power is defined as the ability to influence others' behavior while resisting unwanted influence in return. This definition highlights two key aspects. Influence potential. Having power doesn't always mean actively using it. Many individuals in organizations may possess significant influence without realizing or exercising it. Resistance to influence. Power also involves the ability to resist others' attempts to influence, whether by expressing dissent, refusing actions, or organizing opposition. Leaders often need to balance resisting pressure from superiors or employees to maintain control and achieve what's best for their team or organization. The focus here is on how power is acquired, not just how it is used, emphasizing its dual role in influencing and resisting influence. Acquiring power. Power in organizations stems from various sources, categorized as organizational power and personal power. Organizational power. Legitimate power. Based on formal authority, this allows individuals to influence others within their scope of responsibility, like supervisors or managers. However, its misuse or overreach can weaken its effectiveness. Reward power. Derived from the ability to control desirable resources or rewards, such as raises or promotions, to motivate specific behaviors. Coercive power. Linked to the ability to impose punishments, such as demotions or firings, often creating fear. Over-reliance on coercive power typically leads to negative perceptions. Personal power. Expert power comes from specialized skills, knowledge, or problem-solving abilities. It's particularly influential in fields where expertise is essential, such as technology or retail. Referent power stems from personal qualities, charisma, or reputation, leading others to admire or aspire to be associated with the individual. The most effective leaders combine these types of power, with personal power being more strongly associated with higher organizational commitment and job performance. Influential leaders are often admired for their expertise and charisma, not merely their authority or ability to reward and punish. The ability of leaders to influence others depends on several contingency factors that either strengthen or weaken their power. These factors highlight the importance of dependency within an organization. The more others rely on a leader, the greater their potential influence. However, Even leaders with high levels of expertise or referent power may struggle to exert influence if their contributions are not visible or critical to others. One key factor is substitutability, which refers to the availability of alternatives for accessing resources or expertise. Leaders gain more power when they control unique resources that others cannot easily replace. Another factor is discretion, which represents a leader's freedom to make independent decisions. When leaders are restricted by organizational policies, their ability to influence others diminishes. Centrality also plays a crucial role, reflecting the extent to which a leader's role is essential to organizational tasks and how many people depend on them. Leaders with central and impactful roles have more opportunities to exert influence. Lastly, visibility enhances a leader's power when their authority and role are widely recognized, making it easier for them to leverage their position effectively. Organizations like Microsoft, Pfizer, and Google have begun mapping internal networks to identify influential individuals. Using influence involves translating power into actions that create behavioral or attitudinal changes in others. While power provides the potential to influence, it is the deliberate use of behaviors that achieves the desired changes. Two key aspects define influence. First, it is directional. It typically flows downward, from managers to employees, but can also occur laterally, among peers, or upward, from employees to managers. Second, influence is relative, meaning its effectiveness depends less on the absolute power of the individuals involved and more on the power gap between the influencer and the one being influenced. Understanding these principles helps leaders strategically apply influence to achieve organizational goals while navigating complex power dynamics. Influence tactics are strategies leaders use to translate power into behavioral or attitudinal changes in others. These tactics vary in effectiveness and can be categorized into three groups: highly effective, sometimes effective, and least effective. The most effective tactics include rational persuasion, inspirational appeals, consultation, and collaboration. Rational persuasion uses logical arguments and facts to demonstrate the value or feasibility of a request, making it especially effective for upward influence. Inspirational appeals target values and emotions to inspire commitment, requiring a deep understanding of the target's motivations. Consultation involves engaging the target in decision-making, increasing their commitment to the outcome. Collaboration focuses on removing barriers, providing resources, or assisting in task completion to ensure success. Sometimes effective tactics include ingratiation, personal appeals, and appraising. Ingratiation employs compliments or favors to improve the target's perception of the influencer and works better as a long-term approach. Personal appeals leverage relationships and loyalty, with effectiveness often tied to the strength of the bond. Appraising explains how a request benefits the target personally, focusing on individual gains rather than group or organizational benefits. The least effective tactics, pressure, coalitions, and exchange, tend to provoke resistance. Pressure involves threats or demands, often yielding short-term compliance but damaging relationships. Coalitions rely on enlisting others to strengthen an argument, typically used when other tactics fail. Exchange offers rewards in return for compliance, but is inconsistent and can sometimes backfire. Influence tactics are most successful when combined strategically and aligned with personal forms of power, such as expertise and charisma, rather than relying solely on formal authority. Effective leaders employ softer, relationship-focused tactics to achieve sustained influence and commitment. When faced with influence tactics, individuals typically respond in one of three ways. Internalization. This response occurs when the target not only agrees with, but also becomes committed to the influence request. Internalization leads to both behavioral and attitudinal shifts, with individuals putting in substantial effort to fulfill the request. Personal forms of power are generally more effective in achieving internalization. Compliance. Compliance happens when individuals are willing to carry out the leader's request, albeit with some reluctance or ambivalence. While compliance results in behavioral changes, it does not necessarily alter attitudes. This is a common response in organizations, especially when the request is reasonable. Organizational forms of power are more likely to yield compliance. Resistance. Resistance emerges when the target refuses to comply with the influence request and actively avoids doing so. It can manifest through excuses, attempts to influence the influencer in return, or outright refusal. Resistance is more likely when the influencer has lower power relative to the target, or when the request is deemed inappropriate or unreasonable. Understanding these responses helps leaders gauge the effectiveness of their influence tactics and adjust their strategies accordingly to encourage internalization or at least compliance, while minimizing resistance. Leaders use power and influence in two key areas: navigating organizational politics and resolving conflicts. Organizational politics involves leveraging informal strategies to influence decisions and outcomes, requiring an understanding of relationships and power dynamics. Conflict resolution focuses on addressing disputes constructively to maintain collaboration and productivity. These areas often overlap, as managing political dynamics frequently involves resolving conflicts arising from competing interests. Organizational politics are inevitable in workplaces and involve actions aimed at advancing personal interests, which may or may not align with organizational goals. Despite their negative connotation, political skills are essential for effective leadership. Political skill comprises 4 dimensions: networking ability, the capacity to develop diverse connections; social astuteness, the ability to understand and interpret others' behavior; interpersonal influence, adapting convincingly to situations; and apparent sincerity, being perceived as genuine. Leaders with these skills tend to perform better and foster stronger organizational citizenship. However, organizational politics often generate stress, lower job satisfaction, and reduce performance, commitment, and retention when perceived as excessively self-serving. High levels of organizational politics can even harm overall company performance. To mitigate such effects, leaders need to address personal and organizational factors driving political behavior. Personal factors include a strong need for power and Machiavellian tendencies, while organizational factors such as resource scarcity, ambiguous roles, and unclear performance measures amplify political activity. By reducing uncertainty and involving employees in decision-making, organizations can minimize the negative impacts of politics. Leaders can use their power to resolve conflicts in organizations where disagreements arise when individuals perceive their goals as opposed. Conflict and politics are closely related, as pursuing one's own interests often creates conflict. Leaders can adopt 5 conflict resolution styles based on assertiveness and cooperation. Competing, high assertiveness, low cooperation. A win-lose approach where a leader seeks to achieve their goals without concern for the other party. It's effective when a quick decision is needed, but it may cause negative reactions and damage relationships. Avoiding, low assertiveness, low cooperation. The leader avoids the conflict, leading to no resolution and often unfavorable outcomes for everyone involved. It may cause negative feelings toward the leader. Accommodating, low assertiveness, high cooperation. The leader gives in to the other party's wishes, usually when the issue is less important to them. This strategy is useful when the leader has less power, but it may lead to long-term resentment. Collaboration, high assertiveness, high cooperation. A win-win approach where both parties work together for mutually beneficial outcomes. While it's the most effective, it requires equal power, information sharing, and time investment. Compromise, moderate assertiveness, moderate cooperation. A middle ground where each party makes concessions. It's commonly used, maintains relationships, and produces favorable outcomes, but may not always be the best solution for complex conflicts. The success of each style depends on the situation, and factors like trust and emotional intelligence play a role. For instance, cooperative approaches like collaboration work best when trust is present. Uber's early conflict resolution strategy involved competing by entering new markets without permission, but they have since shifted to a more collaborative and compromising approach, engaging with cities to find mutually acceptable solutions. Negotiations are a key area where leaders apply their power, influence, political skills, and conflict resolution abilities. They involve discussions between interdependent individuals seeking to reach an agreement. Negotiations can take place both inside and outside organizations and can cover areas like contract disputes, pricing, or salary discussions. Successful leaders in negotiations understand power structures, how to influence others, and are aware of their biases. There are 2 main negotiation strategies. Distributive bargaining, a win-lose approach, where one party's gain is the other party's loss. This strategy is used in situations like purchasing a car or union management labor negotiations. Integrative bargaining, a win-win approach, focused on problem-solving and mutual respect to achieve outcomes that satisfy both parties. This strategy is preferable when multiple outcomes are possible, trust exists, and both parties are flexible. An example is a couple negotiating their vacation destination to meet both parties' preferences. Leaders can develop a negotiation reputation, which may make it harder to change their approach. For instance, Charlie Ergen of Dish Network is known for his distributive bargaining style, which can make others reluctant to partner with him. The negotiation process typically consists of 4 key stages. 1. Preparation, the most crucial stage, where each party identifies its goals, evaluates what the other party can offer, and establishes its BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. The BATNA serves as the standard for deciding whether to accept or reject an agreement. 2. Exchanging information, a non-confrontational phase where parties share their positions, present supporting information, and clarify priorities. Active listening and asking questions are critical in this stage to gather insights and understand the other party's perspective. 3. Bargaining, the stage most associated with negotiation, where both parties make concessions to reach a mutually beneficial outcome. Success here depends on effective preparation and understanding the other party's concerns and motives. 4. Closing and commitment. This involves formalizing the agreement. For complex negotiations, this may include detailed contracts, while simpler agreements may only require verbal confirmation or a handshake. If misunderstandings arise, negotiations may revert to the bargaining stage. Alternatively, if no agreement is reached, other resolution options may need to be explored. Negotiators must be aware of biases that can influence the outcome of discussions, particularly those related to perceived power dynamics and emotional influences. When negotiators see themselves as holding more power than the other party, they tend to adopt a distributive approach, marked by higher demands, fewer concessions, and more aggressive behavior. Conversely, when both parties perceive their power as relatively equal, they are more likely to engage in integrative bargaining, striving for mutually beneficial outcomes. Emotions also play a significant role in negotiation success. Positive emotions can encourage a more collaborative and integrative approach, but they also carry the risk of overconfidence, which can lead to rushed and less thoughtful decisions. On the other hand, negative emotions often foster a distributive mindset, increasing conflict and reducing judgment accuracy. Recognizing and managing these biases is essential for effective negotiation, enabling parties to reach balanced and favorable agreements. Okay, the last question we'll discuss is how important are power and influence. A leader's ability to use power and influence is moderately correlated with both job performance and organizational commitment. When used effectively, focusing on task-related outcomes, power and influence can foster internalization among employees, enhancing their motivation, task performance, and citizenship behaviors, while reducing counterproductive actions. Conversely, ineffective use can increase stress and hinder performance. Power and influence also moderately impact organizational commitment, especially when leaders rely on personal sources of power like expert and referent power. These foster emotional bonds, job satisfaction, trust, and effective commitment. However, overusing coercive power or hard influence tactics, such as pressure or coalitions, can harm commitment levels. Therefore, effective and thoughtful use of power is essential for positive outcomes. When negotiations or conflict management fail, organizations often turn to alternative dispute resolution, ADR, a process involving a neutral third party to settle disputes outside of legal battles. The most common forms are mediation and arbitration. Mediation. A neutral third party facilitates discussions to help both sides reach a voluntary agreement. Mediators have no authority to impose a solution, making mediation a quicker and less formal option for resolving disputes. Arbitration. A third party, individual or panel, imposes a binding decision after hearing both sides. While arbitration is more decisive, it is riskier as the outcome depends solely on the arbitrator's judgment. Variants include final offer arbitration, where the arbitrator chooses between the parties' final offers. ADR can be voluntary or mandatory, though mandatory policies may reduce perceptions of fairness. Traditionally, disputes start with mediation and proceed to arbitration if unresolved. However, Research suggests reversing this order, starting with arbitration and then moving to mediation, leads to higher voluntary agreement rates, as the arbiter's decision creates a motivational fallback.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe to channel.